Greetings from Southern California. I'm on my way home from a meeting, and something happened Wednesday, which I'm sure a lot of us are aware of. It's been in the news, but I want to kind of touch on my point of view this morning. Charlie Kirk was assassinated for bringing debate, and discussion about truth, science, and facts from a Christian perspective. And people could no longer tolerate that, I guess, or there's so much hate for God and people who represent God and talk about God and how God created things, men, women, and other issues concerning morality. Here is this young man who at 18 started something, this Turning Point USA, taking an evangelistic approach with debate to the college campuses when a lot of people my age probably have written off the campuses as left-wing bastions and, liberalism hideouts. And here's a young man who went into the lion's den and established something, had hundreds of thousands and millions of views on his Prove Me Wrong debates. And so my thought is that, we are living in very dark times now, and have been, and it's been progressing. I was thinking about this for the last, day and a half or so because, you look back in history at a time when our own nation was divided because of one Christian issue that was trying to seek to abolish slavery. The abolitionist movement had and was stirring up some things there, and they were not being liked by those who opposed this, who were prospering off of wickedness. And this fell into the lap of our President Lincoln at the time, and the nation became divided over a very hot topic. It went from a Christian moral issue and Christians doing something about it, and then it became a political divide and war breaking out. Now, I'm not saying we're headed to war, but you just look back at the time. The truth was being pushed behind the scenes. They were running those slavery escape routes from the south to the north, and finally war took over. People lost their lives because someone was willing to stand up for the truth and side for righteousness and for freedoms for all people. Then you move forward in time in history. In the late 50s, Dr. Martin Luther King came on the scene. And during the time of the Jim Crow era, I had the privilege of going to the Martin Luther King Museum a couple of years back, and very intriguing and insightful concerning the hate that filled the South, and probably in some areas still does. But here's a man who, from his church and from his pulpit, began to, talk about the freedoms we have in Christ and as a nation, and that people shouldn't be judged by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. And so, once again, a truth was brought to light in the public format, in the format of debate, and he had enough courage to take his ideas to the streets, and those who didn't like it opposed it, and it cost Martin Luther King his life, in short. The civil rights movement birthed out of that, and I would say some of that has been settled. I mean, the left keeps trying to make it an issue, which is sad, because they thrive in darkness, they thrive in hate speech, and they violently oppose anybody who has the courage to stand up and speak truth. And then you bring this incident, the assassination of Charlie, Kirk, a 31-year-old man with 2 kids and a wife, assassinated because he brought truth to the table. He brought debate and dialogue to the table. An honest debate. He never insulted anybody. He merely had these campaigns prove me wrong. And if you ever watched any, you always see the ones who were being embarrassed because they didn't have an argument to stand on. They didn't know anything about the Constitution, about science, about truth. And all they would do is spit out hate. And then to watch and hear about some of the responses that took place. One man there present at the rally celebrating, jumping and cheering with joy as he just witnessed Charlie get assassinated. And then the hate that was going on through all the social media sites, and it was newsworthy. You see some of this stuff and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, what in the world have we come to? Here's a young man who simply testified of his desire to see people, talk about God, creation, Jesus. He wasn't ashamed of the gospel. He had courage to sit down and discuss this in this, den of lions. And now he's gone on to be with Jesus. So I was thinking, I'm actually chewing on some thoughts, maybe even preaching some on the lines of courage in these last days. Because it is not going to get better. It's perilous times, wickedness and evil, hate. And it's a very sad thing that has hit our country. It's been on the news for the last, 48 hours at least. And for people to make light of such a tragic point in history, I was embarrassed for a young lady at the hotel, and I asked her if she heard the news. She had no idea what had happened, nor who Charlie Kirk was, and she was only 1 year younger than he was. And my thought was, oh my goodness, there are people in this world who are buried in their own little world who have no clue what's going on. And to be ignorant and in darkness, we need more voices out there declaring truth, standing in the public square, preaching the gospel, taking stands in their schools, not being obnoxious or unruly, but being a courageous, bold witness in these last days is what's needed. I have so much more that's on my mind. I just had to spill out some thoughts, and so just want to share that with you. We're living in the last of the last days. Jesus come back, man, so keep on keeping on until he comes.